Shut up and sit down.
Hey guys, I'm Sai, and welcome to Ace Podcast Nation. We've got podcasts and series on all sorts of subjects. We have series on mental health in sport, conspiracy theories, films and TV, football, wrestling, serial killers, music, and much more. We release 3 shows a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, with the Wednesday show being the Andy Campbell Championship Show with former Premier League striker Andy Campbell and myself breaking down the latest news and results from the Sky Bet Championship. And every week, Andy answers your questions. You can send it those questions and give us a follow while you're there by going to Twitter at acecast_nation or facebook.com/acecastnation. All our shows are available in video format at youtube.com/acepodcastnation or audio download at all the usual platforms, catchers, and apps. So I've been looking forward to today, speaking to my guest. I'm quite excited because I watch his content. I've been watching a lot of it as well. And I never used to be one for watching kind of watch-alongs and stuff, but he got me interested. He's a content creator, an interviewer, a wrestling fan, a self-proclaimed tech boy. He's a bird you don't mess with, apparently. It's Fowl Original. Welcome, my friend.
Oh, thank you very much for having me, Si. Thanks, man. This is awesome. This is really, really awesome to come on. Yeah, we had a really cool little like pre-chat. Yeah, I'm very, very thank you. I'm the poultry you don't want to mess with.
Indeed.
I think I stole it from what's her name? I was gonna say Victoria. Victoria, she ain't the lady you're gonna mess with. Whoop whoop.
Yeah, I do all the time. I got this. It's not a bad habit, I suppose. But every time I have someone on, particularly if I get on with them like instantly, I end up talking to them for like 25 minutes before I even start recording. So what I find on a Monday when I record with Andy with the football show is we talk about all the stuff, all the football and all the stuff that we're going to talk about in the show before we've done the show, and then we have to talk about it all over again. But it's not the worst habit to have, I suppose, because you can have a little natter before. So before we get into the wrestling and the news of the week and what have you, just for maybe some of my listeners, viewers who maybe aren't familiar with you, where did Fowl Original come from, and when did you start? How did you get started?
So yeah, so I'm Fowl Original. That's my real birth name. And yeah, so I'm Fowl Original, and I'm on Twitter and I'm on a load of different places. And Fowl Original started in 2016. It started with me wanting to create some wrestling content and put it on YouTube. That's all I wanted to do. I watched people like WrestleMania. I used to watch, and I still do. I used to listen to like Jason Solomonster on YouTube podcasts back then, Kevin Castle show, Don and Kevin Castle show, all these shows, and it inspired me to want to do that kind of stuff. And I challenged myself to learn Premiere and make a video. I made one video, didn't do too well. Made another video about Roman Reigns, and it got 20,000 views. And then within like a day, and I remember going, "Oh my god, like this could work." At the time, I was coming out. Well, I was at the tail end of a very, 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 very good relationship. And I came out of the end of that, and Fowl Original was kind of born towards the end of it. We were looking for different things, and I've always been a creative boy. So I've always been someone that didn't necessarily want to do the 9 to 5 and stuff. And because of that, Fowl Original was gonna make me a millionaire in like a year, and that was it. And like, everyone doesn't know, and I'm gonna do it. And so I sketched out the character. I sketched him out. I learned in Photoshop how to turn him into a logo. And so that logo that you see, that was mine. I drew it. I inked it. I then learned some other bits and bobs, and Fowl Original became my alter ego, where I could say whatever I wanted. Then had a little bit of time out. I was looking for a new job, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I did live streaming on Periscope as Fowl Original with my phone, and just talked about whatever came to my mind at the time. I started a show called 7 Minutes in Hell, which was me unscripted for 7 minutes, just rambling about something that really pissed me off that day. And I used to have really angry days coming back from work, and I animated them. And that was the next thing. There's been evolutions the whole way through. But to kind of skip to where we are now, last year I watched All In, and around that time I was looking to try to make this something again, and I got in touch with the wrestling community on Twitter, and they all took me in with open arms, and I've been having a blast of a year, just collabing with people, doing roundtables, doing stuff that I never ever thought I'd ever be able to do, because I didn't feel I had the confidence to do it. And technology and the ability to know that people listen and to what I'm saying about bloody wrestling, or like last year I did a show called News Round where I just did the news every night live stream. I'm experimental in hopefully what I do. And so yeah, but right now what I do is watch alongs on YouTube, produce tutorials every now and then, and hopefully help people in the wrestling community with their tech problems, because a lot of people want to do podcasts and stuff, and it's hard. Like some of the stuff is really hard to wrap your head around, and I know that like I've helped people, and like we've gone on to forge really good like collaborative efforts afterwards, and I've had such fun this year. Like this whole year has been absolutely spectacular. Last year at this time, I didn't feel like this wouldn't have happened last year. You wouldn't have been, we wouldn't have even been in contact. I wouldn't have had the confidence to be able to say, hey, man, I want to come on and talk about myself for a little bit. And I really do appreciate that. It's great being able to finish work and come back, be the Rocket Man. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, and it really truly is freeing to be able to come on and talk about a topic that people, and I say this a lot of the time, and it's one of the reasons why I feel that there should be some collective, like, there should be some collectiveness within the community, the wrestling community on Twitter, because, and I say this with like 100% certainty, every single wrestling fan at some point has been made fun of for liking wrestling. At some point, that's a guarantee.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
So,
That's
yeah, so
everyone's been through that, haven't they?
So why the hell would we make fun of our own wrestling fans for liking a particular brand or liking it, because
Yeah.
it's a niche within a niche. You know how it feels. So why are you doing it to someone that you would call your brother or your sister? And it's just a bit weird, but yeah, I've seen great positivity within wrestling Twitter, great negativity, but at the end of the day, I call it home. And uh, yeah, and it's so cool to be able to talk about weird Japanese wrestling at like 3 o'clock in the morning with people all around the world through your phone.
Yeah, I think like technology changed the game for not just wrestling fans, but for everyone, like, for podcasting in general, because now you don't need like a full blown studio and somewhere and to travel to be in the same room and do a podcast where you can do that, but you can also hop on Skype or any of these numerous other streaming technologies, and you can speak to someone on the other side of the world and talk about Japanese wrestling. You could talk about British wrestling. You could talk about apple strudel, as it were, as if you was just saying before the show.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? It's like it just makes it the opportunities just never ending for what you want to do, what you want to talk about, what type of content you want to create. And like I shared with you what we were just talking then about, like I put off wanting to do a podcast for probably 3 years. Just I'd always find an excuse, whether it was my physical health or my mental health or or the kids or this or that. There was always something.
Mm.
Um, and then I think it was around April, May time, I just said, no, I'm just doing it. And I got what in fact, the first, I think probably 30 episodes I did off my phone with some headphones.
Mhm.
Um, and then I got like a mic and a camera and progressed it from there. But like doing podcasts completely changed my life in that
Mm.
I got my confidence back from before I had my car accident, and I suddenly feel like I'm useful again because
Yeah.
I'd had such a long period of I was in a wheelchair for a bit, I was in hospital a lot, I was on crutches, I had spinal fusion and all these like different things which was happening over like a 5 year, but still going on, but like this sort of really serious stuff which was like getting me down and affecting everything was like a 5 year period immediately after the accident. Um, and this has completely got me almost back to myself, and that I couldn't imagine 10 years ago sitting on the internet speaking to strangers, speaking to people, and people watching it, and it's really strange. But yeah, I always say anyone who's ever like, because there's thousands of people, millions of people probably around the world who look at podcasters, look at podcasting, YouTube content, and they think, I want to do that. I could do that. I would like to do that. And I just say to all of them, I would say, do it, because you don't know what you can achieve, what you can create, what you're good at, what you're not good at until you do it. And like, I'm still new. My channel's not even a year old, and it was my birthday on Monday. So me and my wife were sort of having a bit of food, and we were just looking at the growth in the audio downloads from the first couple of months to the last couple of months, and it's so satisfying to look at because you're like, wow, there's actually like thousands of people like downloading me talking, and I get that 9 times out of 10 they're not listening to for me, they're listening for the people I'm speaking to, but I don't care, they're downloading my show, so that's fine. I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
But
And that's
go
the
on.
thing I always used to say. I used to always love was I've got a video on YouTube and it's basically demonetized. It's called, and like everyone will see it when they go on my channel. If you go to youtube.com/FallOriginalWrestling, quick plug. But if you go there and you go to my page, there's a video called Top 10 Wrestlers Who Murdered Someone. Now, the video is literally now at like 550,000 views.
Wow.
It's insane. It doesn't make any sense. I don't know why. Over like WrestleMania period this year, it got loads of views and it made a little chunk of change. Then it just got straight demonetized. So like it will get like 10,000 views and it will earn about 3 cents. And that's fine. But people still to this day, the video is 3 years old, and they're like, you haven't fact checked that thing, and that thing has changed now. And I'm like, yes, that was 3 years ago. But I got to the point where I'm just like, thank you for the constructive feedback. And
Yeah.
thank you for the thumbs down. Like, but that's taken a long time. That's taken a long time to now, because back then I would have been like, oh my God, what did I do wrong? Like, I've done something wrong, and I'm like, it's fine. Don't you worry about it. check out my latest stuff, please.
Yeah, YouTube's really weird because I had this conversation when I had Warren Hayes on the show, and like the hardest thing about podcasting is getting people who don't know you, who've never heard of you, never spoken to you, never seen you, to get them to find your content, to get them to find your videos, to get them to find your podcasts, because the algorithms and everything is set up in a way that if you search for wrestling podcast or any term, say, which would come up for your like watch alongs, or it's probably actually better for you because you've got a lot of followers. Whereas for example, like someone like me who's less than a year old, got sort of, I think, less than 1,000 subscribers. It's hard to get new listeners and followers and subscribers, because even if someone searches almost the exact name of your video, the people who've got 5 million subscribers will come up before you. And I think it's really hard to, especially if you're not familiar like me with SEOs and things like that, to get past that algorithm and stuff to get your stuff out there. But you mentioned just before we started recording that like regular content helps. in your experience, what other stuff helps push yourself up those lists and stuff?
So, like, what I always, so I'm not professionally trained within anything. I picked it all up on the fly, and I think a lot of us are. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it meant that sometimes I learned some bad habits. And what I kind of do is I use a program called TubeBuddy, and TubeBuddy is a really good program, which it analyzes other people's tags and stuff like that, and it gives you a bit of an idea as to how YouTube works, like behind the scenes, like from my tech boy kind of mind. I look at how maybe a system works and how I can apply that to what I know. So I know that it works on a search algorithm. So sometimes I'll put specific words in there. I do a lot of almost like homework before I put a video out. I spend a lot of time on my tags on um, the watch alongs, for example. I find that good thumbnails really help.
Yeah.
And when I mean good thumbnails, I mean they look clean. So I'll let you into one of my other little secrets. So I use a program called Canva. It's an online image editing tool,
Yeah.
and it is very flexible. It's really cool. It means that on the way home on the bus, because I have a real job as well, as I'm doing my real job, on the bus home, and I'll be making the thumbnail for tonight's show, for the Wednesday show, on the way home on the bus, and you can just do it all from your Android phone. It's absolutely free. Few ads here and there, but who cares? It's free. And then I use Photoshop at home for the more heavy lifting stuff. But the weekly show has a thumbnail made on my phone while I'm sat on the bus in traffic. So
Technology again, see?
yeah, but that's the thing. It's something that 5 years ago, 3 years ago, I couldn't have done. And I've been able to slim down a lot of the things I do. So yeah, good thumbnails, descriptions, um, understanding your audience. So like in my description, I put in big capital letters, I will not be showing the live stream from this place. Please understand, I will not be showing it. So if anyone comes into the stream, then I can straight away say, look, I'm not showing it, read the description. It does mean that I don't get as many views as other people might get, but that's something that I found. The one thing as being on YouTube now for 3 years is every January, Google tend to do something hilarious to YouTube. And when I say hilarious, not for any of us content creators, but for everybody that is watching. And last year, obviously, Logan Paul happened. And the year before, there were some monetization issues as well. And this year, it looks like they're changing content that's specifically for children. When you upload a video now, it says, is this content suitable for children? Which is really weird. So there's going to be something happening in January, I can already see. But what I say to people to keep yourself kind of almost like clean is try not to use any copyrighted music try not to, if you're doing a watch along, as tempting as it is, don't put the background sound in because you may get copyright struck later on down the line. I had a video from WrestleMania 2 years ago, and did an 8 hour long live stream. 8 hours. Yeah. It's the thing is like you say it to people, they're a bit like, that's fine, you just sit on your ass and yeah, but for 8 hours and I have to be at least mildly entertaining for 8 hours.
Yeah.
So I smoke. So at some point in the show, as part of my watch along, it's like I'm going for a fag. Normally just before the end of the pre-show or something. It's WrestleMania, so I couldn't really take a cigarette break at all. So I was like, okay, it's the Hall of Fame ceremony thing. You know what? I've got at least time to get downstairs, have a quick cigarette, run back upstairs. So I didn't play any sound from the show. But for that one brief second that I ran away, I put the volume up. All the music was totally cool in the WWE except for the Hall of Fame theme, which is licensed by the WWE. So my 8 hour long live stream is owned by some random company who can monetize it. It's fine. It got like 20,000 views way back when. And I remember looking at it, and every time it gets a view, like it's like a dagger in the heart. Like it's because I'm not hurting anything.
Frustrating that is.
But
8 hours and they stole it
for 13 seconds as well. It's 13 seconds of the song. It lets you listen to it, but it's it's all about like obviously when you make stuff for YouTube, it all depends what you do. If you're talking about wrestling, so if you're talking about Raw, then you're normally fine. I've seen I normally watch people like Wrestling with Regret and
Yep.
Social Injustice Warrior and other Dave Knows Wrestling as well. Channels that I looked at WrestleMania. Oh god, like this year I spoke to WrestleMania on Remote Wrestling. It was like a boyhood dream. Like it's crazy, and he told me some stuff that he does, and you can go and check that out on Remote Wrestling. I think it was episode 3 of Remote Wrestling. I was like, WrestleMania, and no one had ever asked him to be on an interview. And he said, "This is my first podcast. What can we talk about?" I was like, "Oh my god, you're WrestleMania!" Like you have like,
I would love to speak to him. He's one of the first kind of wrestling YouTube channels that I watched, which weren't like podcast related or like watch along related. He was one of the first I subscribed to, which were just like like videos and sort of 10, I don't know, 10 wrestlers who hate Vince McMahon or whatever it may be. He was one of the first which I sort of really got into and watched avidly. And yeah, what's he like? Is he a cool dude? Yeah.
he totally is. He's from the UK. He's about my age, and it's crazy because we were talking, and I was like, "Oh my god, like we're like the same person, aren't we? Like this is crazy." And I spoke to him about how like my first video was kind of modeled on him, like on how he did his stuff, and he has like again talking about anxiety and stuff, and he spoke about this in the interview. He has some anxiety about his speech pattern because he's like, it doesn't seem too exciting. I'm like, mate, it's fine. I've got no problem, but he hates listening back to his voice. How crazy is that? Like a voiceover artist that essentially can't watch their own work. And I was like, wow. And he's like, yeah, because it just doesn't sound right. And I was like, no, man, like your voice is almost like the JR of YouTube.
Yeah,
Everybody
that's
knows who
crazy.
you are. And yeah, he's a really nice guy. Yeah, send him a message on Twitter. I'm sure he'd be more than happy to pop on. Like he's really up for collabs and stuff. He's got a crazy schedule. My God, that man works hard. Um, but yeah, he took some time out, and that was one of the people that talking about like what's happened over the past few years. I would have never in a million years sat watching him on my TV then be speaking to him on Skype and having like a conversation
Yeah.
and like as a peer as well, not even just as a fan. I was
Mm.
like, yo, and at that time I had like 1,000, 1,200 subscribers. I think I was at the 2,000 mark, and he was like, "Yo, man, you're growing," and I was like, "Thanks, WrestleMania, like, oh, thanks, man, like, you like get that in a day, but thanks." But he was genuine about it, and
Yeah.
that's what I found with a lot of content creators here is they're very, very genuine, and we don't see that often, like, and um I think that even like places like say Cultaholic, I think that, and even What Culture now, I'd say maybe to an extent, it's very much fans watching the show, isn't it? And I
Yeah.
think we all are fans watching the show. So I put us all on the same level as those, behemoths of the industry. Like we still have a voice. You spoke about how podcasting can help people and how they can like anyone should do it. Like people used to say in the old days, everyone's got a novel in them. I say these days, everyone's got a podcast in them. Everyone's got a topic that they could quite happily speak at for length for like 12 episodes over like 12 weeks. I'm sure
Yeah.
every and
Absolutely.
it gives them that voice. It truly does. Like but yeah, like WrestleMania, that was a trip. That was an absolute trip, man.
Yeah,
um
that must have been so cool just to like speak to him and stuff and just pick his brain a bit. The I gotta say, every so like I'm coming up to 100 episodes now, and I've had various different people from within sort of wrestling media and wrestling podcasts and then obviously all my other shows, whether it's the serial killer ones or conspiracy theories or just footballers, fighters, boxers. I speak to like lots of different people, but I can safely say I haven't had one bad experience with anybody where they've been like a bit of a dick or just whatever it may be, a bit up himself, or thought they was kind of like they're obviously got a bigger channel or a bigger platform, and they didn't. I haven't come across anybody like that yet. I'm sure I will at some point, but like everyone I've spoken to from wrestling media, like I've had pretty much all the guys from Fightful on at some point, and they're they just can't. And in my opinion, they're the best wrestling website in the world. Just my opinion. They're not the
I would
biggest.
have to agree. I would like, like a lot of people. I've had funnily enough, and it is crazy. Like I've had like not conversations, but like, I've been involved in a situation that was involving Sean Ross Sapp, and it is, and at the end of it, it was positive light. All came out of it, and also, I really respect his journalism, and I always feel like he will have a conversation with you
Yeah.
instead of just kind of shooting you down.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I think that I spoke about this on Mags's show. Big shout out to Mags. Thanks, man. You probably listened to it at 3 speed, but like, yeah, he was so like Mags was he's such a great like podcaster himself, and speaking to people like Sean Ross Sapp, I respect all these people on the same level, because we are all the same level. And I spoke about the blue ticks, people like Jonathan Snowden,
Yeah.
and they're all such nice people. Like I didn't believe that. Like I remember when I first came on Twitter, I was a bit like, and I've never felt that any of them, SRS, like Johnson, and none of the blue ticks have actually been up themselves. I think that they have been really respectful and really open to working with people and doing stuff, like which in other forms of entertainment would be unheard of, like, and I think it's really cool. Like it's so cool. I love it.
Yeah, it's unique, isn't it? Because, like you say, in any other kind of industry, you wouldn't have people with kind of blue ticks and thousands, or in some case, close to 1 million followers or whatever it may be, uh, coming on a show for, say, someone like me who's got, I don't know, like just under 600 YouTube subscribers, or they just wouldn't. Whereas I've had people on the show who, like, I messaged them, did not really expect them to even reply, let alone say, yeah, I'll come on. And they're like within 10 minutes, they're messaging me and saying, I can do it this day or whatever. Like that was a really like pleasant surprise for me, was the amount of people who were open to coming on. And even some of the people, some of the bigger channels or podcasters who I approached, they always replied. Even if it was like a week later, they would reply and say, oh, look, I can't at the moment, but I might be able to come on, in next couple of months, or get back to me in a couple of months. And that was really refreshing for me, because one of the things I was kind of concerned with was, once I went through all the people who I knew, and then all the people that I knew through someone else, I was concerned where I was going to get guests from without just sort of going round the same circle of guests and people. And I've been really, really pleasantly surprised, not just with with the wrestling community, but also other aspects like football and some other people who I've had on. That was really refreshing for me, and I've enjoyed it. I got to say, and like I said, it's not even a slogan. I said to my wife yesterday, my first piece of merch when I eventually get it will be that it'll be a hoodie which says "Podcasting changed my life," and that's just because I want other people to experience what I've experienced in the last 8 months, because it's changed something within me. Not like in this, it's not making me a millionaire. It's not making me any money, but it's just kind of made me change my outlook, I think, on how I feel about myself, how I feel about the world. I still hate the world, man, but that's a different story.
That's a whole other thing, man. That's a whole other thing. We got similar viewpoints on that. Don't you worry about
Yeah.
that. But no, I think you're right. Yeah, I wouldn't have like so I look back at some things that happened like over the year, like really good things, and I think about them, and I'm like, that would have never happened if I hadn't put myself out there in a way which was scary as hell. Like, my voice, for example, like this is my like normal voice, so you don't get to probably hear me like this that often. But because I put on a little bit of a like when because I have to because it's part of the whole deal, isn't it?
Yeah.
So like this is what I normally call the man behind me, like or the man behind me, the man behind Fowl, and like he gets such joy out of this. Like I'll speak about the duality sometimes because that's who Fowl is. Like he's a character that allowed me to say and do things that I would never ever do. Like I on Periscope, I was a little bit more like, "Ugh," but then I understood that I was being a dickhead, and I was
Yeah.
like, okay, it's not a good thing to do. And like I've seen people like on Twitter that are like really toxic, and they've been real dicks, and they know they've been dicks, and you just think that like that's not the way we should be using this technology. Like we should be using it to be nice to each other. Like there's so many cool things we can do with podcasting of itself. Like imagine imagine liking something that nobody in your immediate area likes whatsoever, but people dotted around the world absolutely adore, and it bonds you, it unites you. Like a New Japan show that's happening. There's people in the UK that are like, well, I'm going to wake up early for it. There's people in the US that are like, well, I'm going to have to stay up late for it. There's people in Japan that are like, well, I better go and see it. And like, it's great. It unites us all, and it's such a special it really is. I think 2019 for me is going to go down. It's a very special year, like for how wrestling has become accepted again, like truly accepted and not mainstream, but mainstream enough to be on two cable networks on the same night vying for our attention. Like that's insane. I can't wait to see what 2020 brings.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? And it does feel like if like AEW or NXT get a certain storyline, or if they get something over the next year which really kind of catches on and it gets really hot, it feels like wrestling could have a big boom again. Because like I've seen like saying about what you were just saying there about like toxic people who are quite negative about things, just to be negative about things and just a bit of a dick. And I've seen it a lot since they both started up against each other on a Wednesday, particularly when the ratings come out. It's kind of like it's just people generally just being dickheads to each other because their preferred wrestling company is either got a slightly bigger rating or a lower rating, and it's kind of like it makes no sense to me. Because to me, I look at it and I think, wow, there's just under 2 million people watching NXT and AEW on a Wednesday night. That's really cool, because then you got the 2 million plus on a Monday and the 2 million plus on a Friday. That's really good for wrestling, and that's really good for content creators who create content around wrestling. And I kind of like try to look at it like from a positive point of view, in that there's nearly 2 million people watching NXT and AEW combined. And I think if it was just one of those shows on a Wednesday and they weren't up against each other, particularly the way they've been over the last month to 6 weeks, because I think they've both been excellent.
Yeah.
I think that they would be having, they'd be close to, they'd be between 1 million to 1.5 million probably on their own. But because they're up against each other, you've got like the kind of I think there's like a hardcore fan base of both who will always watch their show first or their show, and then there's another portion who are kind of flitting between the two depending on what the week before was like. So like
Yeah.
last week you had the AJ Styles thing right at the start of the show, and it seemed like a lot of people switched over, so the gap became a lot closer.
Mm. Yeah,
What
I think like I think you're like you hit it right on the head there. Like there are so many like there's two companies that are we're getting to see almost the Monday Night Wars, but just really centralized towards one evening that isn't Monday, but it's really similar in the sense that AEW is this company which is kind of it's begun. It's the new generation. You know, it's the WWF and WCW. And I said this on a few shows before. Now I'm like, it's almost like the WWE has become WCW, bloated with wrestlers on fat contracts that don't make any sense. They get to sit at home and get paid. They're paying people just so they don't go to the competition. And then there's this upstart promotion that's doing all the right things, is resonating and connecting to the fan base, to the young fan base, to the ones that didn't watch wrestling because they think it's maybe hokey or goofy, and they're like, no, but I like this show. And I think it's good for everything because, you know, someone might watch AEW for the first time and say, that's not for me, but they're not a wrestling fan. So they go, you know, I'm going to try NXT. Someone's told me that's good. They're now a wrestling fan. Doesn't matter which one they liked first because they will flip between both of them. And I'm so happy that we're getting to live through like a Wednesday Night Wars. Like again, how cool is that? Like there's two wrestling companies that are trying to put on the best show they can to get us to watch them. Like it's you know the WWE has been on has been uncontested for so long that this is so good for them because you can see them like you know a whole bunch of wrestlers get left on a plane in Saudi and they put on one of the best goddamn shows they do in the whole year because backs against the wall. They try out something different, back to the status quo the next week, but people still watch. But you know, for that brief little moment, you're like, that's what they could do. Um, and we may see more of that.
they always do better, I feel, WWE, when they either something happens and they've got to like make a last minute change. So like you had that show where Kurt Angle ended up being in the Shield for a night, and that was a really good show because loads of wrestlers had the mumps, so they were all, you know, they had loads of wrestlers out, so they had to come up with something completely outside the box and just completely do everything against what they would have done had it just been a normal show. Same with
Mhm.
the Saudi thing on SmackDown, and I just feel like with AEW, that's pushing them to think outside the box. But you know, the NXT was good anyway. However, I contest that before NXT went live, NXT TV wasn't amazing. It was good, logical storytelling, but the takeovers were amazing, and you could watch them, and they were like the culmination of this logical storytelling. Whereas since it's gone live, I feel like they've really upped their game. I thought the first show they did against AEW, I think they worried a little bit too much about what AEW was doing at certain times, and they almost tried to like counter what was going on the other channel.
Mhm.
Whereas since they've got out of that mindset, only my opinion, obviously, I'm not friends with Triple H. You'd be surprised to know. Um,
Damn it.
I but like I do feel like they've kind of just gone back to focusing on just we're going to do our thing. If people are going to watch, they're going to watch. And since they've done that, I feel like NXT on a Wednesday has had the better wrestling for most of the weeks. I just feel like AEW is fresher, and I feel like AEW is a bit different, and it's got that slight edge on a week to week basis. I think well, obviously the ratings are showing that also. But I would argue that NXT has had the better wrestling matches, the more exciting matches. Generally, there's been the odd thing, but the storytelling of AEW, I think, has been excellent throughout.
This is the weird thing about like what's happened with AEW existing now. So I used to watch NXT. I wouldn't always watch it week to week. I would probably stack a few episodes up and watch them on a Saturday, and then I'd watch the takeovers. And it's almost a very similar way to how I used to watch WWE for a while, years ago. And it was like I'd always watch takeovers because they were phenomenal. The 2 week shows were really good, but as you know, here in the UK, as we are, watching that live in a legal capacity isn't really existent. I have the network, and I was kind of pissed that I couldn't watch. I was ready to watch NXT live on the network, like, or at least very, very shortly after, up against AEW, but we can't watch it. So for me, I watch NXT now, maybe on a Friday. Bits of it. I don't watch 2 hours. I don't. An hour show was perfect for me for NXT. 2 hours for me, even though the quality is fantastic, and I'll go back and watch stuff. It's almost become like the Raw and SmackDown problem. There's too much of it, so I end up watching bits of it.
Oh, that's interesting, because I haven't heard many people really say, like, I haven't heard that many people kind of complain, not complain, but sort of say about that extra time.
Only because, like, obviously I cover wrestling, so I'm quite lucky in the fact that I just pick what I want. So if I'm really into, like, I really like NWA Power at the moment. Oh my God. Yeah, I love it. And so, like, but I like to treat myself to that on a Saturday. Like, obviously it's hard to do that if I know what happens on it now by Saturday.
Yeah.
But I still like to try and treat myself on a Saturday. But sometimes you have to watch something for urgency. And because I do giveaways, Fight.tv, and I've had a partnership with Fight.tv now since like May. It's crazy as well. But like they're really cool to allow me to do some giveaways. So I'll watch AEW Dynamite, which legally over here you can watch live on Fight.tv for like $3 a show, and that's really cool. Yeah, and so I can watch that live on a Wednesday night as it happens without any interruptions. Trying to watch NXT with ads is hard now when I watch AEW Dynamite. The shows are always, so far, have been spectacular. I've had no issues with them. I'm not an AEW guy, but I'm a wrestling guy first, and I feel like AEW, just for me, because I've been really invested in the Elite's journey, because part of Fowl Original's journey was watching these videos that these wrestlers called the Young Bucks were making. Oh, they're on Periscope. I'm on Periscope. That was part of my journey, so I'm quite intrinsically linked to them. NXT, I'm seeing some cool stuff, but I think part of it might even be the whole new car smell in AEW for me at the moment. Like, and I hope that it never goes. But for now, that's just pipping it to the post for me. Like, I'll probably start cramming in a lot more NXT as we roll up to Survivor Series, with that big triple brand, mayhem that's going on. Which I'm down for, totally down for. Shinsuke Nakamura, Roderick Strong, AJ Styles. Oh my God! Like, still my busy heart.
Funny enough about that match is, I think I was listening to the Wrestling Observer earlier, and Dave Meltzer said that the original plan was for Nakamura to lose the title to Daniel Bryan. And Daniel Bryan was going to be in that triple threat. So it was going to be Daniel Bryan, Roderick Strong, and AJ Styles in a triple threat. And I was like, oh, wow, that would have been really, really, really good. And I really like Nakamura, but I just thought, Jesus, that would have been amazing. But apparently they're doing the Fiend versus Daniel Bryan, which I'm a massive Fiend guy. So like they can't, he could be against anyone, and I would just watch. I can't stop. I just, yeah. Bray Wyatt is I just find him creatively. I just find him so interesting that the way he's just changed various things about his character, and he's like tried to and now obviously he's completely reinvented himself. But even before the Fiend, he kept trying to just tweak his character and reinvent it. And I know a lot of people criticized his promos for not really saying a lot and saying the same sort of thing all the time. But I always found them quite good because I like my wrestling promos to assume that I'm intelligent enough to pick up on little nuances and like little Easter eggs and little things which might harp back to a promo from 6 months ago or a previous storyline from 2 years ago. Like I like my wrestling promos to assume that I'm clever enough and paying enough attention to get that. And I feel like he does that, and he does it even more now with the Firefly Funhouse and stuff. There's Easter eggs and all sorts within those videos, and I do feel like WWE doesn't do that enough. It treats the audience like they're stupid, and that's a big problem for me personally. Like, I want I enjoyed TV programs like Lost and Prison Break and all these things where it's like a mystery and you're speculating on where it's going to go. And, with wrestling, what do wrestling fans like to do the most? It's kind of like that fantasy booking conversation where you're thinking about all the different possibilities of where said company can take that storyline. What can they do with this superstar and this feud? And I feel like WWE so often underwhelms with what they end up doing compared to what people are excited about or speculating on or expecting sometimes.
I think that a lot of it is that like like us as wrestling fans have long memories, but the Vince has no memory of that.
Yeah.
And that's the problem, isn't it? Like we can. I think that someone like Bray Wyatt is so cool because he does harken back to that old school. Like, have you been paying attention to my promos for the past few months? Like, I've been getting ready to this. It's something that I really respect New Japan for.
Yeah.
And so one of the reasons I really got into it to begin with was because Wrestle King on the road to the Wrestle Kingdom, where I think it might have been 10 possibly, and I was like, I I don't really understand what's going on, but I can pick up something that's happening, and I was down for it. And by the time that I got to some of the matches, I didn't watch it as religiously as I watch other shows, and other promotions, but it was more that I was like, I'm really invested in every single match, and these are calling back to things that have happened before, moves and just slight like physical connections, or like things that were happening, words that were said, looks that were glanced, like glances that were glanced even. uh I really like when my wrestling, or when any entertainment, you talked about like Lost and Prison Break. I loved Prison Break because, and like Heroes, like with wrestling, as Raw is always called, Raw is the longest running weekly episodic programming. Like episodic, realistically, like yes, it's not serialized, I understand, but the serialized story is that there's this wrestling company that all these wrestlers work for, and they all want to be champion. And like it's almost like every week they forget that that's the story of the show. And
Yeah.
like wrestling can be presented in so many different ways. I saw something called Makai, which is like wrestling mixed with kabuki theater, for on YouTube. It's it was mind blowing, but that was different, and it rewarded you for paying attention during the show. And I remember going, "That's what we want from entertainment," and I think that's something that AEW, as you said earlier on with the storytelling, you know, like the ratings for AEW. I saw this just on Twitter just before we started. Brian Alvarez allegedly right now says 947,000 for AEW. 800 or 700,000 odd for NXT, because we just came off one of the biggest built stories in all of professional wrestling right now, the story of MJF. And we were all down for seeing what the hell MJF was going to be saying or doing when he got onto it. And that's what happened. They 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 got us into the building for the pay-per-view, and then they got us onto TV to see what happened afterwards. That's wrestling, man. Like, that's rewarding, and that's how you build must-see TV. You know, we wanted to see what Michael Scofield, how did he get out of this one this week? Like, every single
Yeah.
week. How did he MacGyver his way out, especially season 4? How is he MacGyvering his way out of this one? But I was down for it every week. I was
Yeah,
like,
absolutely. And people say about the length of Raw, right? But to me, I rewatched Prison Break recently, and I watched the first season. I watched all of it, but the first season is 22 episodes. It's really long. Like TV shows these days, they tend to be like 12 at the most, don't they? Episodes. They're a lot shorter these days. And every single episode it finishes, and you just can't. I was just binging it because I just couldn't stop watching it, because every time it finished, it was like, it wasn't necessarily a cliffhanger, but there was some part of the story which I really needed to find out what happened next, where it was going. And I remember growing up, and when I was like a teenager watching the Attitude Era, and I remember like you'd watch the Go Home Raw, you couldn't wait for the pay per view, and then the pay per view would happen, and the Raw after a pay per view was like just must see TV. You could not miss it, because it was, you just had to know what was going to happen next. What was Stone Cold gonna? How was he gonna react to Vince and Shane screwing him again, or whatever it may be, or The Rock getting kicked out of the corporation, and just all these different things. But it was must see, and I these days I just think WWE has become lazy and complacent in the way that their consumers fast forward a lot of their product. I really believe that the majority of people who watch, and maybe not the majority, but a good portion of that audience who watch Raw, fast forward through a large portion of the show.
mm.
Whereas to me, if I had a 3-hour wrestling show with the talent that they've got, I think I could write logical, exciting storylines which would get people coming back to find out, what's going to happen next, etc. But also use the time to use all that talent you've got. And this is what bugs me, when you get the same matches all the time, or you get storylines which don't make a sense, or you've got people who are super talented and they can't get on TV. And I'm like, you got 5 hours of TV a week, if you don't include NXT, to get these guys on TV and do something with them, whether it's showcase their in-ring skills, their character, or build their character. Like, I just think there's no excuse for it.
I think that a lot of it comes down to it's complacency. That's changing now. That is changing, and you can see sometimes, Vince has his feet put to the fire, and he has to produce something slightly different. He has to do something different. But the Fox deal, like, that was probably the ultimate complacency move. They going to sit pretty. If AEW hadn't reared its ugly little head, then WWE would have no reason whatsoever to innovate of any way, shape, or form. They would have no reason. They would have a guaranteed big money contract on a major network in the United States. They've signed a massive deal with BT Sport over here in the UK, which, let's all be honest, it's pretty bad for most of the wrestling fans in the UK. And most of the ones that watch other sports, because goddamn, now you got to buy something else. And it's not done for the fans right now. This is all done specifically to line some coffers, to fund the XFL, basically. And and that's
Jesus Christ.
And that's fine. Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Vince has earned his right to make another football league. Yeah, that's his deal. Yeah, that's fine. As long as he stays away from wrestling, that's absolutely fine. I remember the original XFL. I remember it very briefly, but like, I like it's just really weird now. Like, obviously, this week CM Punk. Oh my,
Jesus
Gideon,
Christ.
etc. Like,
Could be
I
amazing.
I woke up to that news. I remember waking up to that news. I'd been off like wrestling Twitter for a day because you spoke earlier on like about like mental health, and like I'm not an advocate like whatsoever. Like, I've spoken about issues I've had with, and it feels almost silly to say it, but with like imposter syndrome, and it's something that I've had to deal with like for a long time. And I spoke about it, and like every time I do, it's very brief, but I'm not an advocate whatsoever, so I would not say myself to be one. But I'll take time off Twitter, so I'll just put my phone down, play some Spyro. I've been playing Spyro recently, the trilogy, and
Yep.
I took some time off. So the next morning, I've not seen backstage on my way to work, and I'm like, see this message, and I think that it's a goof. I think it's like a deep fake. Like, I didn't think it was legit, and I'm like, who's made this while I was sleeping? And I'm like, it's everywhere. Oh my god, this is real. This is not real. And CM Punk is back in the fold. Like, anything can happen when the right amount of money thrown about. We've seen um wrestlers go to a place that they may not personally like or like the regime of, but they happen to like the color of their money, and there's nothing wrong with that. But
Yeah.
puts
Got-
maybe some wrestling fans in a weird position.
Yeah. So I feel like I don't want to be a hypocrite. So uh, about 6 months ago, I said very openly, I said CM Punk is a game changer for AEW. If they were able to get him, he is the difference between um, like legitimately challenging like a Raw and a SmackDown in the ratings. I really felt that he was that level of star that, and I didn't think that there was really anyone else in the wrestling world who would make that bigger statement. Aside from if you're talking like The Rock or someone like that, who's obviously very unlikely to kind of make that jump. So I'd be very hypocritical if I now said, "Or CM Punk is, 42, or whatever, or however old he is, and he's not going to make any difference to a WWE and this and that." At the end of the day, CM Punk is got his window for making top money from wrestling is closing. You know,
Hmm.
um, so I don't begrudge him if he can get over the differences he had with Vince and with Triple H and whoever else, and he can go back and he can have a short run or of a year or two, and he can make a shitload of money. Then good for him, because why shouldn't he?
Mm.
He his run at the top of WWE was it was my favorite period in kind of recent times, other than maybe like the odd storyline, whether it's the Fiend or different things. But as an overall long run of like a year or two, that was pretty much my favorite period of wrestling in the last probably 10 years, because I find his character and his performance, I find them interesting. He his promos are good and they get you engaged, whether it's as a heel or a face. And okay, so here's a question for you: Do
Yeah.
you think? All right, let's assume he is going to wrestle eventually for WWE again. Let's just assume that that's a given. And just like with 2K and did with Goldberg and Ultimate Warrior, they ended up back with the WWE properly after initially signing, just with 2K. So this is just with Fox at the moment. But let's assume that it's going to lead to some sort of run. Um, who would you put him in? Who would you feud him with going into WrestleMania?
So, like, I think that Punk could be. I think that he could have a really interesting kind of run in the WWE if it was this way, and if it was like from all the reports so far, everything was kept super super secret by Fox, so nobody knew that he was coming out. Like super super secret, except for we knew he went for some audition not that long ago. So this all bears upon it remaining super super secret. So like I would have him come in as being employed by Fox, because you know they've got this thing where like Fox and USA, like the networks did the draft.
Yeah,
Like yeah.
yeah,
Okay. So the network drafts, so Fox drafts CM Punk. I don't know how. They've got more money or something, whatever. But like so we have CM Punk, but CM Punk is obviously being drafted by Fox and is also drafted by USA. I don't ask me why. But this means he can do both Raw and SmackDown. This is his
yeah,
wild card. Yeah. So I'd have him obviously go up against Daniel Bryan, and I'd have the new Daniel Bryan going up against Straight Edge CM Punk, Straight Edge Society CM Punk. So like Punk's going to come back and he's going to be the super duperest heel you have ever done seen, and because he's going to have to, he wants to, like obviously I think that CM Punk himself hates the CM Punk chants and he'd want to get them to stop, and he'd be like, I made them happen. I'm going to stop them. So super duper heel CM Punk going up against Daniel Bryan. I'd also like to see him feud with along. This is along the way, so I'd have him go against Bryan at WrestleMania. Even though most people probably say Rollins, I'd have him feud with Rollins along the way. I'd have him feud with Ziggler along the way. But his main focus for that WrestleMania would be him versus Daniel Bryan, two men who at one point were both champions in the company at a time when ratings weren't massive. But you know, there's that infamous picture of him, Zack Ryder, and you know,
yeah,
like of the champions of that time. That infamous picture of like these are your champions right now. Like I think Kofi and Evan Bourne, they were like
yeah,
tag champions at the time. Like this is it's a really great picture, and that's where I'd kind of draw it from. It's like Daniel Bryan as a new Daniel Bryan could be like, "You sold out, Punk. You left, and da 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 da." Punk could be like, "Yeah, I did sell out, and now I'm on by Fox." And da 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 da. Yeah, I'd think it'd be cool, like him versus Bryan at Mania.
yeah. I think I'd if I he's going to be a face when he first comes back, um, and I think the easiest way to turn him heel, like quite quickly, is say he comes back at the Rumble, has his face off with whoever he's going to feud with, and then on the Raw the next night, he basically says, you know, I'm now a part timer. I'm getting paid millions of dollars. I don't work house shows. Uh, basically, insult the fans, but also all the things that he used to moan about.
Hmm.
He is now that. He's the part timer who takes the spot of the current stars, the guys who go on the road all year round. He's the Rock to his CM Punk all those years ago.
Hmm.
I'd also I'd have him embrace those things. I'd have him embrace the fact that like people are calling him a hypocrite now for coming back after he said all the stuff he said. I'd have him bring that up as well. I'd have him say, money. I came back for money. I came back because I can, and I think people would turn on him because there is that edge of people want to see him, but they also there's this like undercurrent of kind of like people feel like he's kind of a bit of a hypocrite. I've seen a lot of people say it. I don't personally
Yeah.
because I just feel that you know if he can make money, then do it.
I say the same thing. Like we all know, and CM Punk has never ever really shied away from it. Is that what he does is for him and his family?
Yeah,
Like, you know, he's never shied away from saying that, and he, like, I love the fact that because of that, he can do things storyline wise that no one else could. And he doesn't have that ego about himself. He's happy to do things that top stars wouldn't necessarily want to do. And I know when he speaks about, like, when John Moxley speaks about when he was like leaving the company, and he's like, yeah, I just wanted to have a go, like go and have a match with like Stone Cold, so I just went out there and said, can I do a spot with Stone Cold? You think about stuff like that, that's what Punk was doing. Punk was building the Shield before he left. He was doing things and that he really wanted to do, and then he lost that passion and he went away. And I see this less as him coming back into wrestling and more as him getting a job with Fox and getting that coveted morning sofa time. Like, that's what he's looking for. He's looking for a morning show. He wants to be CM Punk, Phil in the morning, like, I'd love to see him to do that. And I think that this is his legitimate way, and also a way. I don't think that he sold out, and I don't even think that the cliche would be now that he bought in. I'd just be that he's a guy who did his time in professional wrestling and proved to himself and all of us that he was a draw. And, and he wasn't totally respected in that position because of politics and because of other people. And he's got out and made a name for himself, more so than he had before. He became bigger than wrestling. And yeah, I think I think it's really weird as well that the people that are that are unhappy that he's come back because he said he'd never come back. Like, there are shades of grey. The whole never say never thing. People grow, people evolve, people change. People might put certain things behind them. People might understand, and it's hard to understand exactly what's going on inside the mind of someone that you are not. And yeah, it's just, it feels a little, again, that thing that I was saying before about how, wrestling fans, at some point, we've all been, made fun of for liking wrestling. Like, why are people making fun of someone for coming back to the thing that they loved? Like, feels a bit shitty.
Yeah, and what's weird is those people who are probably calling him a hypocrite and kind of criticizing him for going back there are probably the same people who chant CM Punk every time there's like a shitty segment. So
Yeah.
it's a bit weird to me, but I don't know. It is what it is, I guess. So you're a big fan of NWA Power then?
Yes.
I'm a bit behind on it, I am, but I watched the first episode and I did really, really enjoy it. I just think it's something different, and I didn't get on the Lucha Underground bus, as it were, when that was out. Particularly that early season, I think was really popular because it was so different. Um, I I'm still kind of in the middle at the moment because I've only watched the first episode, but I did really enjoy that first episode. I'm also a massive fan of MLW. I really, really like that. And because I can, do you know that it's on YouTube in the UK?
Yeah,
Like
it's
all
on
the
five.
shows. It's awesome.
It's on like not 5 star. It's on Free Sports TV, isn't it?
Oh, is it? I watch it on YouTube. I do. It's
Yeah,
on
it's
the
on.
full shows are on YouTube all the time.
Yeah, yeah. I think because I don't know if you ever saw 5 Star Wrestling, the thing that happened.
Yeah,
Like,
I think I did see it. Yeah, well, it didn't last very long, did it?
yeah, like 5 6 weeks. It happened during Snowmageddon over here.
Yeah.
Like, so they were here trying to get to Northern Ireland, um, while it was snowing everywhere, and they had Alberto El Patron come
Mm.
out. He didn't even take his shirt off. It must have been so cold in that arena. And he's just wearing like some ridiculous like football shirt. But and yeah, like I think that the amount of wrestling we get on TV actually at the moment is pretty crazy as well, really. Like, obviously Impact comes on over here. I don't know if you watch Impact at all. I catch it every now and then.
Yeah,
But
I like Tessa Blanchard and I like Sammy Callahan. So like
Mhm.
I tend to watch segments rather than watch like the whole show. I used to
Yeah,
watch it avid. I used to watch it every like Thursday morning, or I used to watch it every like avidly every week for years. And then like over the last probably 2 years, I've kind of just drifted out of it a bit. I do watch like the Tessa segment and the Sammy Callahan segment because I'm a big fan of them. And if I hear or see something which looks interesting, I'll kind of watch it on YouTube, but I don't watch the full shows.
I'm a massive Rob Van Dam fan, so the second I knew Rob Van Dam was coming back, I was like, "That's it." And I've only really watched Rob Van Dam segments. Like that's about it. Like
Heel
I
Rob
just
Van Dam as well, isn't it?
yeah, but it's weird. Like it's heel Rob Van Dam, but it's still Rob Van Dam. So like, like I'm such a big fan of him. So I couldn't. I've seen him work heel before, kind of, like, but he just calls people out for no like. It's just really weird. Like his heel right there. Like I think one of the messages he put on Twitter, someone said, "Oh, can't believe you attacked Ryder." Was like, did I? Like, Rob.
I really like his Twitter though because he's using Twitter as a heel now, like Becky used Twitter last year, and just completely fleshing out the character on social media. And I think a lot of wrestlers miss that as a trick, because let's face it, 99.9% of the people who of the world, really, it's particularly people of the age who watch wrestling, are on social media. So if you can get kind of, if you can find this way which connects with a lot of the audience who watch your shows to further your character development, which particularly in WWE, where they this one of the biggest criticisms of them is their character development from a week to week basis is not always the greatest. Use social media to further your character. And I think Rob Van Dam's doing a very good job. His Twitter has been really, really entertaining for the last few weeks since he turned heel.
Damn straight. Like, and that actually takes me to the fact that I've always said that now, like, it would traditionally wrestling would be your audience would be on TV. You know, those are the people you were playing to. Like, obviously, before that, you were playing to the people literally live in the crowd. Like, moving forward now, the new major platform is social media. Like, the WWE trumpet it all the time. We have 1 billion social followers. Like, that's combined, including obviously all the goddamn bots, which I'm assuming there's like 100,000 of. But like, so but they have so many. So that's their platform now. So you're right. Like their audience is no longer in the crowd immediately or on TV. They have to work us. Like they have to work the people that are unworkable, and we have to be like, yeah, I don't believe that. And when you see a wrestler say something in character, like Seth Rollins he has been a delight recently because he's spitting some truth, but people are like, you're being a bit of a dick, and then he's like, well, yeah, I am a dick, and like you're like, yeah. Actually, and you're right. He's fleshing out a character there that can go either way because you could take it either way. He's not saying it, so you're inferring the intonation of his words, and it's really smart. Like I'd never thought that the wrestlers would be allowed to do that. Like that they'd actually be allowed to get themselves over when we've seen that not be allowed so many times. And you can tell when someone has social media done for them and when they do it themselves. Obviously, there was an issue with it just happened with Jordan Miles, who has just literally hours ago deleted his Twitter as well. After, I spoke on this as a POC, as a person of that. Like, and I remember thinking that, yeah, okay, that's something that's happened. The T-shirt's gone out, and maybe it was not approached in the right way by him. He could have maybe done it in a different way. Since that point, like reports have come out that apparently he was having some mental health issues, and the WWE knew this, and they were asking him to go to a facility to get help, and he's just quit and he's deleted everything and whatever.
It's worrying that is. See, I look at it and I see the way that he's been. Don't get me wrong, like everything which has gone on, I think is ridiculous on WWE's part, but just the way he's been so like publicly aggressive and publicly like loud and that sort of thing. I understand he's upset and he's angry about it rightly, but also I look at it from a mental health point of view, and I've looked at it and I've thought something's not quite right. And when I see someone like that not behaving as if he's done anything wrong, but like just being as agitated as he has been so publicly, and then just disappear off social media and delete their Twitter account, I find that concerning. Just that I kind of hope if he needs help, that he gets the help he needs, and hopefully that's what he's doing. He's come off social media to kind of take a breath and just.
So I'd say so obviously in the position that I'm in now, sometimes people will speak to me about things. Now, I will never ever break a confidence that anyone's ever told me, because that's not fair, and I don't feel that that's right. But there was a wrestler, I'm not going to say their name, but this wrestler he wasn't even a wrestler, he was more like a wrestling personality. But he was on Twitter, sent me a message. Sent a message out there to one of the YouTubers that I follow, and looked like they were having some beef. And I was like, you know what? I think it'd be quite cool if you would like to speak to me, maybe. Like, I actually really kind of didn't idolize you as a child, but I remember you, and I'd love to talk about some of the things that happened in the Attitude Era kind of stuff. And he had recently, not that long ago, had some public issues with mental health. And I remember thinking, I'd love to speak to him and get an idea of what's going on. He followed me because his DMs were open. He followed me. And then 2 hours later, he deleted his whole Twitter. And I remember like having this moment of going, oh my God, did I go make this guy just delete? I'm not an investigative journalist or anything. I'm just a schlub with a mic. And I just wanted to talk to this dude. And I remember then speaking to some people afterwards. Like, I asked some people in the community to see if they could put their feelers out. Just a few people. I don't know a hell of a lot of people, but we found out that he was okay. Spoke to one of his member of his family, and he's okay. And he basically went kind of run scared a little bit because he was having mental health issues, and he was caught basically in a lie. And because of that, he thought I was going to expose him or something. I was like, look, I ain't going to do any of that. And it happens so often. And there are wrestlers, I think that the fact that concussion testing is being done now, and there are procedures for it, something as simple as that can really be stopped. It's sad stories like wrestlers of past, and I hope that we don't see that happen again. And I hope that there were stories in ROH recently about concussion, there being no concussion process.
That's ridiculous, isn't it?
Like, with everything that we know in a promotion that is known for hard-hitting extreme violence, it's shocking. I thought we were past this. We're supposed to care.
It's in 2019 to not have any concussion protocols in place, and know everything that's happened just within wrestling, even if you don't include other sports that have had issues with concussion issues like later in life. Just look at it from a wrestling point of view, and the tragedies and the people who've taken their own lives and things like this, which have either been linked to concussions or have kind of been speculated or loosely linked with concussions. To not have concussion protocols in 2019 is, to quote one of my favorite sayings, is piss poor, big time. It is really, really, really piss poor. And if that's true, they should hold their heads in shame.
It is worrying. Like, it is worrying. Like, all those stories that have come from ROH. Yeah, we don't know how many are true. It seems as if a hell of a lot of them probably are. But it's just really it's worrying to think that there are people being taken advantage of in the wrestling world in a business which is all about putting your body on the line to perform. Like, I don't think there's many other sports, forms of art, or even acting that require this much physical commitment to what you do, and then have to, do a promo afterwards, and then go and smile at like like an awareness thing, and then
Yeah,
go on TV the next day, and then be ready for the next match, and then, like, they live a goddamn hellacious life. I mean, it must be just so worrying just living that life and then thinking, oh, I don't feel too good. Oh, I still have to keep wrestling. You don't care. Oh, all right. Okay. Like, it must be
yeah,
just so disheartening, like, as a wrestling, especially for, I think, some of the younger guys that and girls that are going up there that idolized wrestling for their whole lives, and then kind of it losing its luster almost. They get then they're a bit like, well, everything that happened with Sasha Banks, I think that's a perfect example of someone that got to the top of the mountain and then went, I don't really like the view that much.
yeah,
Like, I, I don't, and it's it's a fulfillment. Like, I'd say, like, with what I do and with what you do as well, the part of that is that creative outlet that you need, and something that you can only get from doing this. You can only get this particular feeling from doing this, and when you start to not like that, or when it starts to become not so fun, like, it can become really disheartening. It can, and I would hate to be someone like a Sasha Banks who'd, like, whole career, and then it's just like, ah, yeah, yeah, there's 10,000 people out there, meh.
yeah. And that, she was a wrestling fan since she was little as well. So for her to get to a point where she was like, don't know if I want to do this anymore. I have to get into the very top of the tree, if you like. It's not good. Just going back to the Ring of Honor thing, before we finish off with the word association question which was sent in. Um, so Kelly Klein is the Women of Honor champion. Um, and according to Joey Mercury, she asked for, I think it was $29,000 per year, like an increase to $29,000 per year, and they said no. And she's their champion, top woman star. I think if that's true, and there was, I believe there was an email which was attached to that tweet, which would intimate that it is true. It's no wonder that women's wrestling in ROH is not taking off the way some people thought that it might.
I mean, when Women of Honor was announced, and that first tournament was announced, and we had names like Brandy Rhodes in it, and people are like, why is Brandy Rhodes in it? And it's like, look, and they need a little bit of star power. They're going out and they're finding women. When Emmalina, Tennille Dashwood was signed, and it was like, oh my God, she signed. There was that really brief period of very, very, very brief period when women were featured in a prominent role in Ring of Honor. I think the problem with Ring of Honor is that there are so many more opportunities for women out there that isn't Ring of Honor. And for everything that we know now, I think everything that Joey Mercury said the day that he started speaking and people agreed with him, I think that if you were a performer, I look at people like Session Moth Martina, who has signed with ROH, um, Joe Henry, the signed with
Yeah,
ROH as well, hasn't he? And I look at those people and I think they saw the good side of it maybe from the outside. Maybe now they're regretting that decision a little bit,
yeah,
possibly. Because if you're a woman and you go into ROH, there's about three other people about, and everyone else
yeah,
is dipped. And it's like, how can you get programs out of that? Like, we're talking about NWA Power. Like, NWA Power right now, for the episodes that I'm on, I won't give you no spoilers, but there's a women's division which has been like started within like episode 3 or so. Sienna Allison Kay is the NWA Women's Champion, and so she's there, and it feels big time. Like Thunder Rosa's there and stuff. It feels like there's a division. There's at
Yeah.
least like 5, 6 matches you could have out of the people that are there. Doesn't feel like that in ROH.
No,
Like
doesn't
it
it?
doesn't, does it? And I think that they need to do, if they to have that women's division, maybe they needed to have some kind of partnership with another company, which I don't think is going to happen too soon. So
Yeah, I get the impression New Japan is trying to get away from Ring of Honor rather than extending their partnerships. And that's
I don't
the
think they're going to send any Joshis down there. No way,
no.
no
I
way.
think Ring of Honor have got a bit of a problem at the moment with PR. They need like a really good show or a big sign in or something just to turn it around a bit because they are getting shat on from all angles, as it were. Um, so we got this one word association question, which we'll finish on. But just quickly, where will Marty Scurll go, do you think?
So I've been worried about Marty Scurll. I've been really worried about Marty Scurll because I think he was again another person that was like, "Wow, I'm going to sign with ROH. Wow, this is going to be awesome. Wow, I'm going to have my own like stable. Wow, I'm still here.
Mm.
Wow, all elite wrestling is happening and I'm in ROH.
My girlfriend's in NXT and I'm
Yeah,
here.
but at least he's got PCO, so you know that's
Yeah.
like that small miracles. But yeah, so I think that Marty Scurll will finish out his contract with class because he has been afforded some decent opportunities there, you know, with Villain Enterprises to kind of give him that chance to still stay relevant and keep warm. And I think the second his ROH contract is over, he is straight over to All Elite Wrestling, and he will start up a program with Kip Sabian, like because with Brit for Brit. But I I think that there's I just think that Marty Scurll, and I have been worried for him, is that I feel like maybe he'll be lost in the shuffle of what's happened in All Elite Wrestling. I think that the casual fan base, like who already exist, who only exist from the beginning of, say, episode 1 of Dynamite, they've not watched anything else, that's all they've seen. They don't know Marty,
Yeah.
and maybe some people won't warm to him as much as if he comes out and he starts doing the Britney Spears songs, I would literally mark out like a child because that's what
Mm.
I loved him for in BTE. But maybe the crowd won't. Maybe the crowd won't be that unless they really promote it like Marty's coming, Marty's coming, Marty's coming, which I feel like they'd want to maybe do that. Or
Yeah.
but at the same time, I feel like maybe they'd want that big shock to happen at like the beginning of an AEW Dynamite episode to kind of roll, to take to take the social media train for that evening. Um, but yeah, I worry about if I worry about if he will still be relevant, like not relevant, but he will still be wanting to be in AEW, or if he'll want to go around the ring a little bit more. Maybe he'll want to like do another little tour somewhere in Japan. I think that he of all the people is the last true free agent, really, and maybe he
He,
brings PCO with him.
he is the last free agent. I think the one thing with uh, Marty is I kind of one of the reasons why I lean towards I would personally rather him go to NXT is because I would like to see him debut on NXT as the villain, like the lights go out and him have the leather coat and the mask and it all like when he debuted in Ring of Honor, like similar sort of thing, or when he like when they kicked Adam Cole out of the Bullet Club, that
Yeah, yeah.
that was my favorite version of his character. Um, Whereas I feel like if they have him doing the singing in AEW too early, it could give people the wrong impression of him.
And
Um,
that's what I mean. That's why I worry.
Yeah,
because maybe they'll go because that is one of those you've already got to be in on the jokes.
yeah, yeah. It is. Yeah, and he could just be written off as a kind of like a comedy act jobber, like the librarian has been, and um, I don't know. And like I think Marty is so talented, and I feel like he could go to the very top of both companies if booked right and protected. Um, and it's interesting because everyone assumes he's going to All Elite Wrestling, but he's got a lot of friends in NXT, and
Mm.
he's also his girlfriend's there who he lives with, and this, that, and the other. So
He's got a lot of friends in NXT UK as well.
yeah, he would be massive for NXT UK.
Oh my god, I would love to see him as United Kingdom champion. Like the villain Marty Scurll as United Kingdom champion, it has such a ring to it. Like, you know, and he could do like a Villain Enterprises there. I think that would be
Awesome, wouldn't it?
phenomenal.
Be
Yeah.
incredible. Okay. So just to finish off, we'll do the Johnny Wishbone sent in a word association for you. So he said you got to say the first word or person from the wrestling world that comes to mind when he says these, or when I read these words. Oh, this will be interesting. I'm going to add one as well. Uh, Maybe. No, I won't actually, just because I changed my mind. Okay. Funniest.
Doink.
Doink. Most over.
Dream. Velveteen.
Nice. Dumbest.
Eugene.
Overrated.
Ooh. Ooh. Uh. Woo! I just that's the only thing that came to my head there. I don't know why. Not Ric Flair, but the woo sound.
Yeah, I can get on board with that actually. Most reliable journalist.
Um, I'm gonna give it to SRS, Mr. Sapp. Good go.
Good shout. Most entertaining company.
AEW.
Prick.
Uh, this is prick. I'd probably say Warrior, and like that's because of the history of Warrior. If you know
Yeah,
Warrior, yeah, yeah.
yeah. Fair enough. And the last one is hottest.
So like I, I say that Nydia, yeah, but that's because I don't know why, but like when I was younger, I had this massive like crush on Nydia, like, and so anytime I think of like women, female wrestlers, I think of Nydia for some reason. So yeah, Nydia.
That's a really interesting one because she wasn't like the one at the of that era who everyone sort of would have named if you'd asked that question then. That's an interesting one. Um, Final question. Describe Brad Shepherd in one word.
Hyphenated bullshit.
That's a good answer.
I always thought BS stood for bullshit anyway. I didn't realize
Yeah.
it was Brad Shepard.
Oh, he's a person.
Yeah, he's a one. I just wanted to say like he is a guy that I feel like he's like who was that dude that everyone was automatically friends with in MySpace? Tom. He's like Tom. He's like the Tom of wrestling Twitter. I don't understand why he's here, but everyone has to see him. Right.
Yeah, you can't avoid him. He just turns up. He just
Just
appears.
it's everywhere. It's everywhere. But I respect. What I do respect though is I respect the balls on that man. Say what he says.
Yeah, he's got no shame.
Yeah, and then go. Yeah, man, I did it for the clicks. I did it all for the money, the monetization. Like, oh, it's cool, man. Cool. Not cool.
He's a massive weapon. Um,
Mm.
right. Tell the people where they can find you everywhere.
Okay, well, thank you so much for having me again. I am Fowl Original. You can find me on @Fowl_Original on the Twitters, also on YouTube, youtube.com/Fowl Original Wrestling. You can also find me on my website, fowloriginal.com. I also have another podcast which goes out, Remote Wrestling, where we delve into what else wrestles with your remote. And if you go into that one, I have interviews with people every now and then. And then there's also Weekly Wrestling Recap. I was on live on YouTube every Wednesday and Sunday, 8 p.m. UK time, 3 p.m. Eastern time.
Indeed. Make sure you check it out. You can find me on Twitter @acecast_nation, facebook.com/acecastnation, and youtube.com/acepodcastnation, and all the usual podcasting sites and apps. But you can find links to all of those at pod.co/ace-cast-nation, just to make it complicated. Mr. Fowl, thank you very much for joining me and
Thank you very much for
giving me
having
your
me.
time. Yeah, I had fun. It was a good laugh.
Cool.
Enjoyed it. And guys, thanks for listening, watching. Give us a like, drop a like on the video, leave a comment, share, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Cheerio.
Bye.